Welcome back to the Next Level Sega fans, with the podcast with parts so old, their disk drives are failing. I'm Dan the Mega Driver, and with me as ever, he's the Saturn drive empty to my Mega CD disc read ever. It's James the Segaholic. How you doing, mate?
I think given the guest that we have, I think if we're talking about drives failing, I think it has to be that.
I actually do have in my intro notes that we have a special guest who's clicking and grinding like a GD-ROM drive. It's Tom Charnock. Tom, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure, as always, to be here. And James, I must say that impression of a GD-ROM drive actually gave me palpitations. I was looking around thinking, where's the Dreamcast that's failing on me again? You know.
It's all right. Tom here's a failing disc drive for a Dreamcast. He's away getting a donor, hooking up cables to this one and that one. Just
open heart surgery every day of my life. You know, I have to say, just get a GDM, but it's not the same, is it? Come on, we always like to see those ring. Please insert disc. You know that blue screen of death. You know, it's a rite of passage, I think, for Dreamcast owners. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Dreamcast.
We are. We'll park that completely for now. But before we get into the meat of it, Tom, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? What in general in life, or what do you want to know? I can tell you my whole
in general,
life story.
But it's gaming wise. What are you doing? Any new pickups? What have you been doing with yourself, gaming wise?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been playing quite a lot on my Switch recently, and the game I've been playing a lot of in the immediate past is a game called New Star GP, which is a game which is heavily inspired by virtual racing. It's a low poly racer, but it has a real emphasis on the career mode. So it's almost like taking the elements of virtual racing and sort of melding them with, one of the modern sort of Codemasters F1 games. So I actually really like it. I think it's great. Other than that, I've mainly been playing on the PC. I've been playing on Bolt Gun, Warhammer 40k, I believe it is. Yeah, it's a sort of old school sort of boomer shooter, with like 2D graphics in a 3D engine. But it's heavily inspired. Well, it's not heavily inspired. It's actually a Warhammer game. So
awesome.
Yeah,
I've been really playing cool. A lot of Dark Side. Which is 40k. A friend introduced me to it, and I think it's amazing. I absolutely love it. Which got me all obsessed with 40k again.
What are you playing that on? What format are you playing?
It's currently on Xbox, and I've been playing it on PC because it's on Game Pass. So obviously I've got a sub to Game Pass, and I started on the Xbox, moved down to PC. My PC is like 10 years old, and I keep getting warnings saying that my CPU is below the minimum spec.
Keep powering through.
But it manages it. Turns into a slideshow now and again. But I'm like, look, I love Saturn Daytona and touring car, all right, with a few drop frames now and again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a massive affinity for Warhammer. I mean, I remember playing Space Hulk on the Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
Bring it back round to the Saturn years ago. But all of my knowledge of Warhammer comes from games, really.
Yeah.
So Bolt Gun is just another one in that series. So, yeah.
See, you mentioned Space Hulk, right? And you talk about a Saturn game. I hear Space Hulk and I go back to the board game.
Right? Yeah.
That's how old I am. Like I remember, like Space Hulk and Hero Quest came out right about the same time.
Yeah.
I used to actually get really into painting the wee miniatures. You see, every time you used to play it with mates, it was like, right, who's going to go the evil wizard? That was me. I was sitting behind my screen with my wee pile of orcs, goblins, and my gargoyles sitting there. Here we go. That's brilliant, man. But it was Space Hulk was the Space Marines. What was it? The Gene Stealers they were called, wasn't it? As well.
Yeah, and the Blood Angels.
Yeah.
See, God, memories. See, we've gone down a memory hole now, aren't we? Reminiscing. Like I remember having it on a 3DO. It was like, oh God, it looks so good on the 3DO. But yeah, sorry, I'm gonna
almost turn into the Games Workshop podcast.
Well, we did MOT chat before we started, so we might as well. We'll just cover everything. That's it. You ever had any GR valve, guys?
How is your EGI valve going? Enlighten the listeners about your EGI valve.
It's fine, mate. As soon as we take off the idle, man, it's brilliant. It's smooth moves. There we go. We've come back to Sega Rally, so we're fine.
Right, so we're not here to talk about Warhammer or Dreamcast, but Tom,
Or
last
EGR
time,
valves.
or EGR valves. Last time you were here, we went through your gaming and Sega journey. We talked about the junkyard and also about your favorite Sega console music and game. But this time, per your suggestion, we are going to talk Mega CD. Now, you actually got one back in the day, which you lucky so and so, because I wanted one more than anything back in the day. But what was the first model that you got?
So the first model that I got was not actually a Mega CD, which sounds weird, but it was actually the Multi Mega.
Oh, so you got the multi mega from the start then? Because
Yeah,
I remember you
yeah.
mentioned that you had the multi mega.
Yeah. Christmas 1995 it would have been, and I distinctly remember it because myself and my brother we had a Mega Drive at the time, and that was our main console. And we were aware of games. It wasn't the internet, as you guys know, and people listening to this know, wasn't really a thing then. And so all the information we got was through magazines, and we knew that the Saturn and the PlayStation were kind of on the horizon or just about to come out, but we wanted something new and exciting. And I don't even remember asking specifically for a Multi Mega, but I think my mum sort of saw it maybe, and just thought, oh, that must be a new thing. I'll get that for them. So Christmas morning, opening the wrapping paper, it was this black box with the purple sort of indents on it and the circles and things, and I was a little bit puzzled at first, like what the hell's this kind of thing, ripping the paper off, and then realizing it was a new CD based console. It had Sega written on it, and I was like, oh, brilliant. I'd heard about the Sega Mega CD, but I'd never seen a Multi Mega before.
Yeah.
So getting it out of the box and seeing this tiny little, tiny for then, little console which had the slot at the back and it kind of slowly dawned, oh, it's a Mega Drive and a Mega CD in one. This is amazing. I think 1995 was sort of towards the end of the lifespan of the Mega CD, because obviously the PlayStation was already out that year, because a friend of mine around the corner got a PlayStation, which I'll come to in a second. But yeah, me and my brother were completely enamored with this thing. We to have CD games, it was my first introduction to a game on a CD. Putting like Road Avenger in, starting the game up and seeing that full motion video was just absolutely like eye popping. Like, what am I witnessing here?
Yeah.
I've never seen video in a game before. Over the next week or so, we saw our friends. We mentioned that we got this thing and we were raving about it. Friend of mine who got a PlayStation was like, "Oh, I got a PlayStation." I'm like, "Well, what's that?" kind of thing. Went round to his house, saw Ridge Racer, and was suddenly like, "Oh," because we were going on about Road Avenger to him. Like, "Oh yeah, it's amazing! Like, you go around this like corner, and like the car flies over this ramp, and there's like explosions and stuff." And then went to his house and played Ridge Racer, and was just like, yeah, this is actually for the DVD. It's not just a video that you're playing kind of thing. So yeah, that was my first introduction to it really. Christmas 95.
Yeah, so because it's weird when you say, because you're right when you say that it was near the end of its lifespan, but over here the Mega CD had only come out in 1993. We barely got like the Model 1 console. I think it was on the shelf for a few months before the whole Mega Drive 2 Mega CD 2 refresh came out. And that's why one of the reasons why the Model 1s are so rare these days. But by the same token, 1995 is only 2 years on from that. And obviously Japan got the Mega CD 91 and the US got it 92, so a little bit longer. But I suppose it just shows how quickly the technology was moving back then for it to be considered getting on a little bit. But
absolutely,
1995, I remember I still wanted one because it was like the holy grail for me, because they were just, it felt like it was unobtainable, because it was, there was one guy at school that said that he had a Mega CD, and I was like, no, I don't believe you. You don't have one.
Do you remember, like, very much in this period when you were a kid, you go into game shops and you'd see the standard stuff. You'd see like the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo games and maybe like Master System and NES stuff. But there'd always be a section which housed what I used to call the exotic games. You'd have like the 3DO games
Yeah.
or the CDI games that nobody ever bought, and were always the same games in the shop every time you went there. But
Yeah.
it was always like you'd look at them and go, "Oh, look at this!" It was like touching a thing out of an Indiana Jones film, wasn't it? You know, off a off a pedestal, like, oh, look, the flashback for the 3DO. Look at the box art. Ooh. And the Mega CD for a while was a little bit like that. It was like it was always the same games. Nobody ever bought them, but they promised to be like, you know, an enhancement over what you remembered from the Mega Drive. And in some ways they were, but it just kind of held this mystique, you know, and getting that Mega CD, even though, like I say, the 32-bit systems were literally just coming out, getting that CD-based system felt like we'd entered the next generation.
Yeah.
Even though it is essentially just a Mega Drive with a CD drive add-on.
Yeah. But then CD storage was, you know, the future basically. You know, it was all optical drives from there. And yeah, I've got a few unlocks of memory now. I remember being in Curry's and picking up a Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo for the 3DO, and I was just like, and I think they had a demo of it on, and I was like, oh. And it was just like it was like £600 or whatever it was, and it's just and even the Mega CD was like that, because it was like even the Mega CD on its own was like £299. And I remember pleading with my parents, going, "Look, please, for Christmas, it even comes with like 7 games, please." And they're just like, "Absolutely not." What games did you get with yours?
Oh, so I remember that first Christmas morning, we had Road Avenger. Obviously, there was a game called WonderDoog, which I didn't really appreciate at the time, but I've played since, and is actually quite a decent sort of 2D platformer. There was one game, which now the name of it escapes me, but it was something like Something Warrior. It was an FMV game where you played first person, and you had to like fight people off with like karate moves. And I can't remember what it was called, sorry.
I'm drawing a blank on that one as well. That would be...
Can I look it up? Is that okay?
Yeah, go on, look it up.
I've actually got a list of games here, and I'm trying to see if I can see it as well.
Yeah, it was Something Warrior or
Supreme Warrior.
That was it.
Supreme Warrior.
Supreme Warrior. Yeah, yeah. And interestingly, I remember because that was a bit of a duff game, we took it into a game shop to try to part exit. You know, you used to take games to swap for other things, and the guy wouldn't take it because he claimed that it was a Sega a CD 32X game that would only run with the 32X. But I was like, well, I've been playing this on my Multi-Mega, so what's the deal with that? You know, and he wouldn't take it because it
what are those hands all about in that, by the way? I'm watching it running. It's like hands chopping, like coming out for the screen, and this random foot just appears. This is some crazy janky shit, by the way. It is
super janky looking back at it, but it was like it was video, full motion video, and I'm sure we'll talk about that shortly. But you could press buttons, and like you would initiate moves like chops and kicks and stuff, and you had to get them just right, otherwise you just get your head punched in. But it was awful. Even me then knew that it was awful just playing it, you know. So that's why we tried to get rid of it. And the guy was like, "No, we can't take this because it's a 32X game." I'm like, "Oh, what? I haven't got a 32X. I'm not that rich, you know." Yeah, it's interesting actually, Dan. You mentioned the Mega CD like models, because I remember mentioning to a friend of mine that I'd spoken to on the phone, of all things. Remember them?
Yeah,
the actual phone.
The actual phone. Yeah.
Yeah, telling him that I had a Mega CD. Because we didn't really differentiate. We didn't say, "Oh, it's a Multi-Mega," because people were, "Oh, what's that?"
Yeah.
So I said it was a Mega CD. Anyway, he ended up getting one, and the next time I saw him, he had a Mega CD, but he brought it to my dad's house because my mum wouldn't let us take the Multi-Mega to my dad's house because they were separated. When he brought it round, it was a Mega CD 1, and I'd never seen the Mega CD 1. I'd only seen the Multi-Mega. So I was like, "What is this? What is this thing under your Mega Drive?" Like, I just thought it would be the same as our Multi-Mega, you know? So
yeah, not
having the beauty of the internet to just like look up images and stuff, I didn't have any concept. I just assumed everyone's would be the same as mine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was a different one. And then obviously I had the Mega CD 2, and again we'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, I just remember this kind of like mind-blowing moment of seeing this thing with like lights on it and the drawer opening. And like, oh my God, is it all right? You know, is it CD drawer open and little lights on the side, like access lights and stuff. Like, oh, this looks a bit steampunk.
Yeah, it's
Always,
gorgeous.
always thought the Mega CD one looked like a hi-fi separates piece. Like it should sit in like a home cinema or something. And maybe they went for that kind of aesthetic, but the kind of the green and red access and read lights and just the whole look about it. It's a lovely system, but it's kind of weird as well, seeing how quickly to us that you went from like the big Mega CD one, then obviously the Mega CD two was a lot more kind of streamlined to sit with the smaller Mega Drive two, and then you've went to the final iteration, which is this kind of almost portable CD player kind of version with the two of them in the one. But I mean, I'd never seen a Mega CD one in the flesh until God knows how many years later. Man, that thing's just, I'd love one of them, but the prices are just insane. And Dan earlier on explained pretty much why the price difference is so crazy. I never realised that we didn't have the one in this country for such a short spell before the two came out.
Oh, really? Is that so? That's the reason that it was so rare and common then? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
because I think the whole it came out in 1993, and the whole Mega Drive 2, Mega CD 2 refresh came out just a few months later. So there's
Good old Sega.
So, yes, classic Sega, isn't it? But it was literally on the shelves for a few months, and then and the fact that the problem is it's a beautiful monster because it's absolutely stunning, especially the tray comes out and you got all the lights like, and it's like ooh ah, but Simon Locke on Twitter will just tell you that you've got to service them like mad because the capacitors leak all the time and so much goes wrong with them. Like if you ever see one on eBay, it's usually someone selling one for parts. So I'm sure that's a driver for it as well. It's probably people that back in the day it started failing, just tossed it. So I imagine they're pretty rare.
It's interesting that you'd be talking about all these different models of Mega CD because the thing that used to happen with me and my brother is we'd go to my dad's at the weekend and he would have to kind of replicate the things that we had back at home that my mum had bought us. So when we had the Mega Drive, it was a Mega Drive 1, the original Mega Drive. He bought a Mega Drive 2 because he got it later. And then when we got the Multi-Mega, because my mum wouldn't let us take it to his house because they hated each other. I'm not going to go into that like family drama. But you're not taking your consoles to your dad's. He would have to kind of like try and get something else to keep up with. So then he ended up eventually getting a Mega CD 2 so we could bring our games to his house.
Yeah.
So he had the Mega Drive 2 and the Mega CD 2. And then my mate down the road had the Mega Drive 1 with a Mega CD 1. So it was kind of like this little kind of ecosystem of like just us that had these consoles and nobody else had them. So we could, swap games between each other. And my dad would be like, we'd bring my dad and he'd be like, oh, have you got any new games? Have you got any new games for your Mega CD? Can you bring them at the weekend? Like, we'd smuggle them there in our bag, like my mum wouldn't find out, it's like self-feed. Got self-feed. Bring it. Like, because this is, honestly, I've not even thought about this stuff for like 20 odd years, it's really bringing back memories. So it's great.
Yeah, and I think one of the good things about getting a Mega CD at that point is they already had an established library with it. You had, like, as I say, when I saw it and when I was really trying to get one was when it had like you had the compilation that came with it, and then it would come with Silpheed and Cobra Command and Road Adventure. So it would be like a big sticker on the box saying 8 games in one. But you had you already had like a pretty decent library. It wasn't like, obviously the PlayStation and Saturn had just come out in '95 when you got one, but there wasn't a load on those systems. Whereas the Multi-Mega, there was quite a lot to pick from, wasn't there? And imagine there was, and the games at the time, imagine there was probably a few that were quite affordable.
Yeah. You've just reminded me of a game that we did get with the system, which was it was Cobra Command and Soul Feast.
Yeah.
It was on like one disc. It was a double disc thing, or maybe it was on. Yeah,
they're on separate discs. Like you've got, if you flip it over.
You've got the
double CD case.
Yeah. And that was another one that we spent quite a lot of time playing. Especially Soul Feast. Cobra Command wasn't great because that was another sort of FMV game in the style of Road Avenger.
Yeah,
we just had to press the prompts at the same times. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was good to have the extra system, to look at the library of, because obviously the Mega Drive was tried and tested at that point, and everybody knew the classics, and there were still games coming out for it. Very few and far between. But the Mega CD just opened up a whole new world of disc-based games, and because I wasn't really reading magazines that much at the time. You'd beg, steal and borrow them from people at school, or it was just like you'd come across a magazine and you'd see what games were in there, and invariably there'd be Mega CD games in there as well. So it was just a bit getting glimpses of what was out there and looking at the back of the box essentially to see what the game was like. And people talk about bull shots now, but bull shots back then were part and parcel of it. You'd see things like Sewer Shark. And you'd have and it'd be like, you'd think that's what the game's going to be like, and you play it, and it's literally just like 16-bit grainy FMV, it's nothing like, what you showed on the back of the box. So, yeah, I think, Sega and a lot of companies dodged a bullet there for like false advertising back in the day with screenshots on the back of the box.
Well, it's not too far removed from. I know we touched on it last time we were talking about it, but like the 8-bit home computers, it would be like, oh, I'll buy this. I'll pick up this box of like Outrun or something. You look on the back and you've got like the Spectrum or the Commodore 64 or the CPC 464 version. You look at it and you think, wow, does mine look like that? And it's like, yeah, this might not be. Images vary from system to system. You put your safe and it looks absolutely nothing like what it is on the back of the box.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened whenever I bought 1942 for the Spectrum, which was one of the first games I ever bought with my own pocket money from the micro shop in Partick. And I remember it was the big box version. Now the Spectrum games, you got like the tape.
Was it tape rattling around in the box?
Aye, and then you had the slightly bigger box, which was not, and then you had the full size ones like RoboCop that had like that plastic insert that held the tape. Well, this was 1942 in the kind of middle size box, and it was just the tape rattling about. But I remember looking at the back, and it was like, oh, there's water and different coloured planes, and oh, look at these enemies. And then you get home and play it, and it's like, nah, man, the water's just yellow with black lines like this. And you see the small print in the back, screenshots taken from Atari ST version.
Oh, yeah. Looking at the game, looking at the monitor, like, hang on a minute. Yeah, we had that with the Amstrad 6128K. It would always be like the 6128K on the back of the box. We had the 464. So we were like, hang on a minute.
But yeah, Mega CD was a little bit like that as well, because I've got a few on the shelf behind me now, and you look at the pictures on the back, especially like the FMV games, and it looks like they're like DVD quality. You see on there, and you put them in the Mega CD, and it is just the Mega Drive color palette, so everything's lots of artifacts, low color, loads of color band, and you're just like, yeah. I mean, at the time, I imagine it was still amazing seeing that sort of stuff in motion. I do remember seeing Road Avenger playing on a rolling demo in like Curry's or something, and just being like, wow, this is amazing. Obviously, we'll probably get onto FMVs later, but yeah, I'd imagine it was mind blowing when you got your hands on one.
Absolutely, yeah, and not just the fact that Road Avenger was full motion video and it was like a playable cartoon, because that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
I have to give a special mention to the sort of the intro demo for Road Avenger with that song, that rock song.
Yeah,
I remember when that garage door opens and that music kicks off, and you're just like, oh my god, everyone shush, and you're just like, wow, and this rock song starts, and you're just like, amazing, this is amazing. That's why I was so hyped when I was telling my mate who had a PlayStation, unbeknownst to me at the time. I was like, yeah, this game's unbelievable. And he's like, I bet it's not that good. And then he put Ridge Racer, and I was like, cheers, mate.
No, I won't stand for Road Avenger Smack Talk. I love that game.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite games. It's so good. I literally sometimes I have been known to watch the full playthrough on YouTube just to get those like nostalgia hits. And the bits that I couldn't get past, our version, it wouldn't get past. There was a level that was in like a jungle or a forest or something, and there was a bit right at the end where you went over a ramp and the car spun around upside down.
Yeah,
and the CD would skip in exactly the same place every time, so we couldn't get past that bit. And it was so annoying. And then I completely forgot about that. And years later, this would have been like 2 or 3 years ago, I just happened to find a full playthrough. I was like, oh, I wonder what happens after that bit on Road Avenger, because I never knew. So I watched it, the entire thing. I sent it to my brother. Like he's like, oh, like he's not even a gamer. He's not into games in any way. He's like, that's amazing. I never, because we never found out what happened because we never got past that bit because the CD constantly skipped. But yeah.
I can't remember if that's
Good
before
memories.
or after you go through the sewers.
Oh, I don't know.
So,
That's yeah, memory's not that great, but I just remember that bit where the trees and everything around you. It's like, oh, damn you, Road Avenger. You can get an iPhone now, can't you, Road Avenger? I'm sure you can.
oh, most probably.
Can you? Really?
Most probably,
I'm
yeah.
sure I saw like a mobile version a while back. Yeah, I don't know if it's still listed. It might have been taken down. But
Probably has. The amount of games that have been lost for the App Store in the last 10 years is scary.
Some
You look at-
madman put it on Super Nintendo.
oh,
There's a homebrew version that's on the SNES. It's unbelievable.
Man,
that's brilliant. I love that kind of reverse engineering that goes on a lot now, where people put all the games. You guys know about this because I've seen loads of your videos about this kind of thing. People put in like arcade games for the Mega Drive, but yeah, putting like Road. I think there might be a Road Avenger version for the Atari 2600.
Oh, is there?
Potentially. I saw something about them putting full videos or full movies on the Atari 2600. So, I mean, I suppose it's technically possible, but yeah, sorry, I'll stop talking now about Road Avenger.
No, so we'll probably talk a bit more about it a bit later, but just rounding off, because you had access to essentially all of the versions of the Mega CD. So which one was your favorite? I mean, the Mega CD one, beautiful machine, but that multi-mega is gorgeous. And that was fully portable, wasn't it? I think it was advertised that you could use it literally as a CD player. I've never used one myself.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I remember that sort of January after Christmas when we went back to school. I was telling people, when you go back to school and you tell people what you've got for Christmas, and like, yeah, I got this thing. Like literally nobody in my class believed me that I had this thing called a multi-mega. Like, you're making that up. That doesn't exist. So I literally took it to school the next day. And at the back of it, so for people watching this or listening who don't know what it is or what it looks like quite a bulky personal CD player. And at the back of it, there's a separate section that's got like a Mega Drive game slot on it. But then at the side of that, there's a little pull tab. You pull it back and you can put batteries in it. I think it takes 3 AA or AAA batteries. You put them in and you can use it as a CD player. You can't play games with it, but you can literally use it as a portable CD player. And to say people's minds were blown when I took it into school and showed it to them, they had no concept that it existed. So that just shows you what Sega's kind of market penetration was like back in the day. Everyone knew what a Mega Drive was, but to see this thing, it was like magic. Like what? Like how does this exist? Kind of thing. But just to go back to your question, Dan. I mean, yeah, I think I was quite spoiled by the fact that I had the multi-mega. Because it did everything. It was an all-in-one system that did more than the other two. Can you imagine trying to take a Mega CD out in your pocket? But yeah, so I would say the Multi-Mega was by far the best of the 3 versions. I mean, I got one later in life when I started collecting again and paid over the odds for it and just reminisced about it, and it was cool. But yeah, the Multi-Mega would be the best one, or the CDX as it's known in America, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they all do kind of the same thing, don't they? So
they do. Yeah, the multi-mega and the CDX are probably the coolest with the Model 1 not far behind. I've got the Mega CD too, and it does the job. It's just it's not as spectacular as the other two. I don't think. Which is why it's probably the most affordable way to get a Mega CD these days. Because you've got the other ones, you've got the XI and the WonderMega, and there's so many of them. There's like a JVC one. There's I'm sure there's like a Toshiba one as well. Like no, they did all the Saturns. Oh, no, Hitachi one as well. There's so many of them. But yeah, I think because I have actually seen a multi-mega in a shop once, and it was just kind of on display, kind of as you walked in. It wasn't connected to anything. It was just there, and I was just, you could touch it. And I was just like, ooh, and flipping the lid open, pressing, you're a kid, you're like touching all the buttons.
Yeah. I think the Mega CD 2 is kind of slightly different from the others because it almost felt like a bit of a budget version of the Mega CD because it had no kind of like, it was just like a flip lid. You just drop the CD in and it was kind of worked. I'm sure I've told you the story before about the demise of the Multi-Mega. I've told James many times. Do you want me to regale you again with that story?
Regale it because it's
it will make you cry. It will make you cry. For those people who've never heard it.
So viewer and listener, beware here.
Yeah, viewer discretion is advised.
That's the thing. We've just spent like half an hour, like totally like romanticizing over this system, and now we're going to get to the absolute like horror ending to this beautiful story. Like Romeo and Juliet's got nothing on this, man. This is
Shakespeare's Mega CD, Multi-Mega. Yes, that particular unit came to a sad end, tragic end even, to build on James's Shakespearean overtones there. I was sat downstairs in the living room watching the TV on the big telly, as we used to call it.
Yeah.
My brother was up in our bedroom playing on the Multi-Mega on the small telly, the little portable we had in our room, little portable CRT TV. I decided to go upstairs and plead with my brother. His name's Wesley. Wesley, let's play on the telly down in the living room. He's like, no, I'm playing. He was playing Final Fight CD or something like that. Oh no, I'm playing this. I was like, come on, we'll play it downstairs. It's on the big screen. Come on. Look. So then ensued, back and forward of me nagging him to put it on the TV downstairs and him going, no, I'm playing it up here. I want to complete this level. To the point where he then completely lost his temper, grabbed the Multi-Mega and said something like, well, fucking have it then, and just threw it at me. And I remember seeing it coming towards me, spinning towards my head. And I moved out of the way and then sort of watched it go past me in slow motion, hit the wall and just explode. And honestly, it sounds dramatic, but I literally remember seeing it like hit the wall in slow motion and just bits coming out of it. So that was the end of the Multi-Mega. My mum obviously went absolutely ballistic because, this would have been sort of towards the end of the year. So we'd had it for, maybe 9-10 months.
Wow,
so
that's
still quite new. Yeah. She went absolutely off the wall. She took it to a couple of places to try and get it fixed, and they all told her that it was, beyond fixing because it was literally smashed. And that was the end of the Multi-Mega. It's not such a sad ending because the following year, that's when I got a Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
I sound like I come from like a rich background, but I don't. My mum used to scrimp and scrape and get these things from God knows how she would afford them. But yeah, that's when the Sega Saturn came into my life. So wasn't too bad an ending really.
Well, it's a sad demise to the Multi-Mega.
It really is. That's another Multi-Mega taken out of the food chain.
Yeah.
Because my brother was an idiot.
And you say you bought one a few years back. They're not cheap.
No, I got when I got back into collecting in about sort of 2012, 2013, I got a Mega CD 2, started to build up a pretty hefty collection of Mega CD games, and then a friend of mine had he had 2 Multi-Megas and he wanted to get rid of one. So I got another one off him. And so I had the Multi-Mega and the Mega CD 2. So I was kind of just like reliving my childhood, but like we all do when we try and buy back everything we had as kids because we now have disposable income. I was like, I'll pay 300 quid for a Multi-Mega just so I've got it, So yeah, I got another one in time, and yeah, good memories, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Do you still have it?
No, I sold that one as well. God, all these consoles I talk about, I must have had about 10 of all of them, do you know what I mean, over the years, and sold them and got another one and sold them. And every time, without fail, paying more to get it back again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's always the way, isn't it?
I was just thinking like, there was someone was posting me like one of those pictures of CEX shop windows the other day, and I was in the shop window, and I'm sure it was like £650 or something like that. And I was just thinking, please tell me you still got it, or that you're done with it and you're never going to go back to it.
It's funny you mentioned that. Sorry, James. Before
I'm just saying, I think it's more than that now, mate. I'll look that up while you go back to your point there. Sorry, 2 seconds.
Yeah. No, I was, in preparations for this chat, I was, reminiscing about Mega CD games. I've been playing a load of them on like emulators and stuff, and just watching a load of content on YouTube. And I came across a video by Sega Lord X, a friend of yours, I believe.
Yeah.
He did a review of KO Flying Squadron, which is a game I did have. for the Mega CD. And he was talking about how it's like this video was from like maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And he showed a graph of what it's worth. And it was approaching like £2,000. And I was like, oh my God, I had that game. Like, what? Like, what? Yeah, mind-boggling. But, you can't dwell. You can't dwell on these things, because otherwise you'd just cry in a hole, wouldn't you, for hours.
Well, this is classic CEX. Okay, so an unboxed Multi-Mega just now is 530 quid. They'll sell you a discounted one for 480.
What is that? Which branch is that? I'm just going to make a note.
If you want one boxed, 850 quid boxed.
Well, there we go.
Just a moment's silence for the Multi-Mega there. There we go. No one has one in stock, by the way, to make you feel better. There you go. They're all out. Thing is, there actually was a boxed one in stock for ages. In fact, I remember after the last time we spoke to you, Tom, I kept on checking it, and it sat there for must be 6 months, but someone has obviously paid that for it, like some nutcase, because there's not any in stock boxed, unboxed or discounted. So, yep, someone paid the 850.
I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, in some ways, if you've got the money, then crack on, But yeah, I don't know. It seems it's just such a lot of money in it for something that I don't know if we're kind of quite privileged being the age we are, because we kind of grew up with these things and we have a kind of connection with them. But somebody who's come to retro gaming or collecting sort of after the fact, and they are confronted with these prices, it just seems a bit scummy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And this is a norm to people who are coming to it now. You know what I mean? That's a sad thing. Like, as you say, we remember going into game shops and seeing Mega Drive and Saturn and PlayStation games in a bucket for $3 for a tenner, and it being good games, just games that they wanted to get rid of, that probably now are stupid money. But
yeah,
as you say, these people coming to it now, they've got no kind of past or childhood or youth kind of memories to go back to. So this to them is the norm, which is sad. But it looks like it's just going to keep going up, because I felt really bad because my mate Sam, he was selling some Dreamcast games, and he knew I was on Twitter. This was maybe 2 years ago. And do you remember, Dan? Do you remember Scott Halstall? He's left. Yeah. He wanted one of them, and it was Project Justice Rival Schools 2, right? And Sam sold it via me to Scott for the price that CEX wanted at the time, which was 65 quid. Have you seen how much Project Justice goes for now?
It was in the shop. It was actually, I think it was Project Justice that was actually in Milton Keynes CEX, and it was 150 quid, I think.
I believe it was 180 quid.
Yeah, I knew it was something like that.
I got that for 20 quid in Game Station when it came out. It was one of them £20 games, you know what I mean? It's I can't believe it. Yeah.
And it's the same like Marvel versus Capcom 2 as well. Whenever I got that Dreamcast back 4 years ago, and I started building up that kind of physical collection, like you said, Tom, buying everything back that you had lost or sold. And I remember I went onto the CEX app and I bought boxed Marvel versus Capcom 2 for 45 quid. And this thing, when it came, how the person who's traded this in didn't get mint, I'll never know, because this, the manual, none of the pages had been bent. It was crispy new. You could even flick the pages and smell it. It was so new, right?
I can smell the smell in my nose.
It's and the inserts, the hinges were intact, everything amazing. And obviously the disk drive kind of died, and I went, oh, screw this, I'm going to go down the GDM unit. And out of curiosity, I checked. I think it's 110 quid or something now for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Yeah. It's what? Really?
Have you kept it? Yeah.
No, whenever I basically kind of, at the time, whenever I was trying to kind of justify the whole, to my wife to say, well, I'm going to sell all these games and it'll let me buy this thing called a GDMU. But look, if I sell these, I can afford to buy that and I'll have money left over. It's you try to justify it, you know. So No, but I had about 25 odd games, and I just went, I sacked this and sold them all. And I remember when I sold that copy of MVC2, it must have been like a collector guy because he done a refund on it. And I hadn't even noticed this. Like, he had to have had like one of those, like, what would you call it? Mind the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and everybody's got like a big eyeball on like he managed to spot this tiny, tiny little blemish like on the edge of the outside rim of the disc. And he's like, yeah, this isn't perfect condition. I want a refund on it. And I'm like, mate, like, are you can't, like, how have you even seen that? Like, so I was like, Jesus Christ, man. But sorry, I eventually I sold it to somebody else. But it's crazy to see the prices that people who are coming to the hobby now are being confronted with. But thankfully, if they're not too precious about physical media and discs and cartridges, then there's options for them. But I do understand the appeal of wanting to have like if I ever go to Dan's house, man, I'm just going to like go through those shelves behind them and just probably cry with, I used to have this. I used to have this.
Just rifle through. My stuff's not collector's condition. It's all very well.
It's just your stuff, mate. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, I was the same when I had my Dreamcast collection. It was all, most of the games had no hinges, cracked cases, all sorts. So they were played with, they were used. So
yeah. But
Yeah.
look, what better way than to expand on the pain and talking about the games again? So I was thinking, Tom, we can't talk about Mega CD without talking FMV games. So you talked about how Road Avenger was amazing. It's like controlling a cartoon. Did you have many like FMV games that you played?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, I went through quite a lot of them, and very quickly kind of cottoned on to what they were, which was A, rubbish, and B, had like very little like replay value.
Yeah.
And I know that they tried to sort of, randomize certain games in some ways, but they just became almost like the bane of the Mega CD library. You get a game and you go, oh, what this is like, and then you put it in and you're like, oh my God, no, it's one of these video games. Oh Christ, no. So yeah, I played a lot. The vast, the main bulk of the Mega CD library that are F&B games, I've played them and experienced them in some way. Some I've got, better memories of than others. So things like what I mentioned earlier, Sewer Shark. It's not a great game, but the reason I remember that is because it was one of the earliest games I played for the Mega CD and probably one of the, apart from Road Avenger, one of the first F&V games. And I just like the whole kind of aesthetic around it, being in those sort of tunnels. It had a very kind of like alien-esque sort of feel to it. You were this lone pilot flying through these tunnels and you had to like blast aliens and stuff. So that was pretty good. And I also like the way that the guy would call you dog meat.
Yeah.
Dog meat. That became like a thing like in our friend group because we'd play it like at my dad's house sat on the TV and we'd all start calling each other dog meat. So there was that was one. There was another one called Ground Zero Texas.
Yeah.
Which has a really cool name and a really cool kind of premise, but it's actually crap. And it's literally just you controlling these cameras around this town. And it's just a bit of a light gun game. It's just it's not
a great light. I mean, I've got a version really cheap and it barely works. So like if I get the disc working, I get to a point on it. But it starts off with like it's all done as in like you're the first person, isn't it? So they're all talking to the camera all the time, and it is quite cheesy. There's almost a charm to it, but yeah, the gameplay just isn't there because it's just like it's not even like Lethal Enforcers level, is it? I don't think it's the worst FMV game, but it's pretty paper thin, the whole appeal of it, and it's not the most responsive, is it?
No, and it's very interesting that a lot of these games came to the Mega CD or were developed for the Mega CD because obviously Sega were leaning into this kind of let's take advantage of the CD-ROM, unless you had a PC at the time, really, or some kind of exotic console from faraway lands, you weren't ever really going to see FMV unless you had a Mega CD. It was like opening it up to the everyday person who who wasn't a PC gamer or imported consoles. So it was almost like a novelty. And the first time you saw it, you're like, oh wow, video in a game. This is new. But then after like the 10th one, like that one Supreme Warrior, or I've got a list of them here. You've got like Ground Zero Texas, Sewer Shark. There was a couple of others that were actually pretty good. There was things like Rebel Assault, which kind of melded FMV with actual gameplay. There was obviously things like Night Trap, which have become really like famous in recent times because of the remasters. But back in the day, they were just like, oh, it's another one of these. I don't want to play this. It's rubbish. You know, Tomcat Alley.
Yeah,
the jet fighter game.
Yeah, that I've got that, and it's
it's like you get the same like FMV clips every time you die, that kind of stuff, and it's just like, oh god, what is another one of these? I thought it was going to be like a proper flying game, and it wasn't. It was just a crap kind of,
And the version
FMV.
that I've got, you know when you failed before you actually see the FMV because you can hear the drive moving. You're like, did I get him? And you hear it go.
It's almost like it's answering you into it. It's like, nah.
Oh god, I used to have that same thing with I think it was FIFA 96 on the Saturn.
Yeah.
When you shot towards the goal, the game would sort of stutter, and you could hear this start spinning, and then you knew that it was going in, so you'd like go, yeah, before it went in. Especially when you're playing against your mate, you're like, because you can hear the Saturn like going.
But wait for it.
Love the jank. There's a couple of there was a couple of FMV style games that actually tried to like blend, not just like Rebel Assault, but blend like gameplay style. So there was a couple of interesting, I wouldn't call them good, but they were interesting sort of shoot 'em ups or shmups, like mainly into the screen. There's one called Nova Storm, and there's one called Microcosm, which was like set inside a human body. And
I remember Microcosm mainly because I played that on a friend's Amiga CD32.
Oh wow! So you're one of the like 3 people in the
UK that have played one. Aye. Yep.
Yeah. No, that was pretty good. And I tell you, that particular game, Nova Storm, was the one that kind of it kind of gave me a visual explanation of how much more advanced the PlayStation was over what we had in the Multi-Mega. Obviously, it is knowing now, but back then it was like, oh, it's another console. Because my friend had Nova Storm for the PlayStation at the same time that I had it for the Multi-Mega, and just seeing that video so much cleaner and so much smoother, it's just like leaps and bounds ahead of what we were playing on the Mega CD at home. So yeah. That's why that particular game sticks in my head. And I also thought that the game was called Noun Storm for about 5 years because the font on the front of the box, it looks like the word is noun, Noun, not Nova. So I was calling it Noun Storm. All these words coming at you.
Carol Voldemort appeared like that. Have consonant, please, Carol.
I always wonder, what's it called? Noun Storm? Just play, But yeah, so yeah, quite a few different. There was also like was it Crisscross? Was it Crisscross video? Make a video.
Make a music video. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, and
bloody hell.
Yeah, there was a couple of those sort of slightly dodgy like tie-in games.
What was the basketball one?
Oh,
I'm trying to remember.
It wasn't Shut Up and Jam, was it?
No, I think Shut Up and Jam. I don't know. Was it? I think Shut Up and Jam might be the Mega Drive game. I'm not sure though. Might be wrong. But yeah, it was like you had the FMV and you had to kind of line up your shot and.
Yeah, it was in a similar vein to that Supreme Warrior kind of game when it was like first person, was it? Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
and yeah, I'm trying to think of any others off the top of my head, but I'm drawing a bit of a blank. But yeah, it was. Yeah, you can't take it away from Sega. They were trying to lean into this new kind of technology and like take the the benefits of it and show you something that you hadn't seen before, which in effect they did.
Yeah.
For people like me who had just sort of previously played Mega Drive games, so yeah, but just in total, they just weren't very fun, very repetitive. Not really a lot of replay value.
Yeah, they were initially really exciting. because it was new. It was stuff like it was maximizing what you could do with CD as far as we could at that time. But yeah, I think a lot of them concept were quite thin. I think a lot of them originated from Sony, didn't they? Sony had some. I'm trying to remember the story
Was
in the
it
back of
Image
my head.
Soft? Was it Sony Image
Yeah,
Soft?
they
Yeah.
because it came back to kind of like I'm trying to remember. I think it was something like they had this whole video game VHS system, and they went kind of to they prototyped it and it didn't go anywhere, but they'd already recorded all the footage and designed the games.
Okay.
And then when the Mega CD came out, and that's how the partnership with Sony, because Sony had already recorded all the footage and done it, all of that stuff. And then Sega were like, well, we need content for the Mega CD, and Sony were just like, we've got this.
That makes a lot of sense, to be honest. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's in Console Wars and off the top of my head, and I think that's how kind of that whole relationship between Sega America and Sony ImageSoft, and when Tom Kalinske is talking about the relationship they built and when they were saying, oh, we wanted to work together to build the next generation console. I think that's where a lot of that came from. But yeah, I think it was just exploring what they could do with the medium at the time. But there are some that I like. We talked about Road Avenger, which I think is brilliant. Cobra Command, I thought was okay. Mansion of Hidden Souls, did you get to play that one?
I don't think so. Did that get released on like the Saturn or something?
So the Saturn is like a sequel.
Right. I think I might have played the Saturn version.
Yeah. I've not played the Mega CD version all the way through, but it is actually on the Mega Drive 2 Mini.
Okay.
And I started it, and it's pretty decent, to be honest. Pandemonium did a review of the Saturn version, but talked a lot about the Mega CD version, and it's by all accounts, it seems like a decent game. Obviously, it's quite cleverly done because you're walking through this mansion. I don't know if you've ever played. Is it D?
Yes, I love D. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
which
original one. Yeah.
yeah, which is all FMV, but you're all kind of navigating around, and it's all full motion video, which is really, really clever. James is having a little chortle to himself there.
Just move on. Oh, sometimes you hear something that just tickles you. Just move on.
Yeah, so I think Mansion of Hidden Souls on the Mega CD is a pretty decent one. And yeah, when you're talking about the games that that use the FMV kind of but had normal normal gameplay over the top, Sealfeed is one of my favorites for doing that.
Yeah,
because I actually thought that was fully polygonal, and I was like, "Wow, this is proper next gen."
Yeah, no, I was just absolutely blown away. I know it's a phrase that a lot of people use, but yeah, blown away by this like full kind of, it looks like it's gone one better than Star Fox, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? With those like huge battles going on in the background and stuff, and then it's only later on with like sort of, I say, adult eyes, more mature eyes. You look at it and you think, yeah, the Mega CD's not really pushing any polygons there, is it? It's just kind of playing a video in the background. So yeah, no, get that.
Yeah, the ship was polygonal, wasn't it? It's just a tiny ship, and I think the enemies might be 2D. I'm trying for some reason I can't remember at the moment. But then like you've got all these huge polygonal ships all in the background, all flying in. You're like, wow, huge explosions. You're like, wow, it's amazing. It's not all real. It's all FMV.
Yeah. That's another game that kind of me and my brother used to play it to death, and there's quite a few sort of sound effects in the game that we would sort of repeat to each other, and there's like loads of like sound bites and
the
vocal
dialogue's brilliant
bits.
in it.
Yeah, there's one bit where I think it's sort of towards the end of the first level where you approach this like huge like mothership thing, and this guy goes, "Look at the size of that thing!" And then my brother used to say it all the time. He's like, if anything big or something would happen, he'd be like, "Look at the size of that thing!" Like, it was exactly what he was talking about. And he's again, he's not even a gamer. Like, and it's just like, yeah.
It's brilliant. It is super. It's definitely one of the best games on the system, I think. It's one of the ones that I enjoy the most. So yeah, the Mega CD did get a few Amiga ports as well. You mentioned WonderDoog, which I've got the Japanese version back there, which it's a platformer. There's not too much there, but that's from the people that made Chuck Rock. It's from Core Design. I think it's the same team that made that, which is so it's a decent little platformer, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, and to be honest with you, when on that Christmas morning when we had our Mega CD for the first time, Multi-Mega, that was the game that got the least amount of attention because it was just like, oh, we've kind of played these styles of games on the Mega Drive before, so we want to see the the FMV and all that kind of stuff. But then after that initial wave of enthusiasm kind of died down, it was like, well, let's have a look at this. And that's a game that we played quite a lot, to be honest, because it was quite fun. It was, we had things like Pugsy on the Mega Drive, sort of like cutesy little kind of platform games, and WonderDoog kind of slotted into that quite well. And I think it's quite an underappreciated game. There's a lot of background artwork that still sticks in my mind now because of how well drawn it was and how beautiful the game was. You know what I mean? So, it's an interesting one, but an acquired taste, I suppose. If you're not really into those kind of games, you won't really get a lot of WonderDoog.
I suppose it's not really it's not like a Sonic or Mario level platformer, but it's a decent platformer, and I think it's one of those ones where if it's on a cartridge, you've got a lot less detail, a lot less variance in the background, whereas a lot of it seemed like it was almost hand drawn, wasn't it?
Yeah, but almost quite reminiscent of like something like Rayman. Yeah, like really detailed 2D sprites and things. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think XJ220 is another one that came from the Amiga originally, which is a massively upgraded port of the Amiga game. And that's a phenomenal racing game as well.
It is, yeah. It's not one I owned myself, but a friend had, and I lent off a friend and played that quite a bit. It reminded me of a game I had previously on the Amstrad called Burning Rubber, which was like a sort of a Le Mans style, sort of 24-hour style game.
Is that the game that also came to the GX4000?
It is indeed, the very same. Yeah. So that's kind of that's the memory it sparked for me when I played it, but obviously way more advanced. And just a great game. Things like CD, you could change your CD tracks and that kind of thing, and you had like pit stops and stuff, and just really cool like sprite scaling, at the side of the tracks, and it was just a really, really nice looking game.
Yeah, and Wolfchild's another one that came from the Amiga that I've played a fair bit of. Well, I've got it back there, and I think the thing with that one, more that the gameplay is pretty. I don't know if you played that one.
I haven't played that one. No,
it's kind of a platformer, but you're obviously a bloke that turns into a wolf.
A bloke. You're a bloke.
Yeah,
geezer.
just a bloke. But yeah, it's the FMV that's pretty good. I suppose we're talking about the FMV games, but the intros were quite a thing as well, weren't they?
Oh yeah. And every time you put a disc in, you're waiting for something impressive, aren't you? It's not just going to be like a Sega logo; it's going to be an actual full motion video. And invariably, it was. That's probably what took up most of the space on the disc. To be honest, in most of the games, it was the FMV intro.
Just listening to you Mega Drive snobs talking about Chuck Rock and Wolfchild. Like these were like Amiga. Like fuck you, man. It's like
oh god, I forgot Amiga man's here.
I'm like, that's an alright platform. Wolfchild, you're just a bloke that's on. I loved Wolfchild, man. Come on. That was such a good game.
We're in the background raging.
Oh man, I'm sitting here like that. Just to you shitting on my Amiga childhood. Man.
We talked about WonderDoog and XJ220, and if you like Wolfchild, tell us about Wolfchild, mate. Come on.
Just a bloke that turns into a wolf.
I mean, you are, and the Mega CD version was better.
Oh, I mean, I think if I remember was Chuck Rock only a single disc on the Amiga, so like that must have been padded out a lot in terms of like extra kind of background detail and stuff like that as well. I think Wolfchild was only 2 discs on the Amiga, and there was nothing in terms of any kind of fancy like movies or anything, any attempt at any kind of cutscenes. Like Rise of the Robots had like a full disc just to load like a cutscene, man, for your robot walking out of a hangar 3 steps. Insert disc 14. Yeah. So, but I always remember whenever you used to collect, I think the most advanced that Wolfchild got on the Amiga was a soundbite whenever you transformed into a wolf. Oh, that was it.
Do you not have the intro on the Amiga? It goes into the console. I'm sure you had it on a few games like Flashback and stuff.
Aye, Flashback's amazing.
Yeah,
loved that.
But I think obviously Wolf Charger had the intro, and Chuck Rock had the intro on the Mega CD as well.
That was amazing. That we playing the drums, remember?
Yeah.
So
No,
good.
on the Mega CD, you've got a whole like basically a cartoon beforehand.
Oh, do you? Aye.
With Gary Gritter.
Gary Gritter.
Gary Gritter is the rival.
Can I just say one thing about that? Sorry, a total tangent. See, where I stay, when it gets really cold, we've got a fleet of gritting machines that go out, right? One of them's called Gary Gritter. The other one's called Spready Mercury. There you go.
They clearly don't care. Core Design or Eidos, whoever owns the rights now, they're not in a rush to resurrect Chuck Rock, unfortunately, probably because of the aforementioned Gary Gritter. So Tom, I think going beyond that, just favorite games on there, mate. I mean, there's probably a load of them, but
you know, I was thinking about this, you know, in the last few days, you know, leading up to this chat, and there are, for a console that lived for such a short period of time, there are some absolutely belting games on it, and a lot that never really made it to other systems.
Yeah,
a lot of exclusives, you know. And a lot of games really that spawned, you know, sequels or entire series in some cases. So I've got a list here of a couple of my favorite Mega CD games. I'll just briefly talk about some of them. So the first one I've got here is Thunderhawk, which is a helicopter sort of arcade-style flight sim played from a first-person view. People may be more familiar with Firestorm Thunderhawk 2 on the Saturn and the PlayStation, and I think it's on the PC as well. But that's the game that really kicked that series off. Again, another core design game.
Yeah,
they really took the Mega CD like by the horns and pumped out some really good stuff on it. And what stands this game apart from a lot of the other games is it's actually a totally kind of 3D environment that you're in. It's not fully 3D. All the enemies and stuff are sprites, and it's almost like a sort of a Mode 7 SNES style view that you've got. But it's way better than anything you would have got on the SNES, and it really does take advantage of the Mega CD hardware, what little extra hardware it's got. So that's one, Thunderhawk, really cool game. I couldn't really not mention Sonic CD, because it's one of the best. It's one of the best Sonic games, and the sort of mechanic it has, where you use like the past, present, and the future, different versions of the same level. Really cool, and just an outstanding intro. That song, you know what I mean? Just so good, and obviously the 3D sort of rotating Mode 7-esque special stages as well, which were like resurrected in Sonic Mania, I believe. You know, similar kind of thing.
Similar,
yeah. So yeah, Sonic CD, got to give that a mention. Final Fight CD, again, amazing game. The one game that my brother was playing when he threw the multi-mega at me, so I'll never forget that one. But yeah, just I know, James, you're a fan of the Final Fight series, so I'm sure you've played that one to death. I'll just quickly run through a few more here. I've got FIFA Soccer for the Mega CD. Even though it was basically the same game as what was on the Mega Drive, it had these really cool FMV cutscenes when you scored a goal. For example, it would like go up to the view screen and show you like a little video or something. What I forgot. We've mentioned Lethal Enforcers, the light gun game. That was cool. And Lethal Enforcers 2. Soul Star was a favorite of mine.
Yes, I've never played it, but that's another core design one, isn't it?
It is. It's fantastic. It's so good. It's an into the screen kind of shooter, but it's not FMV. It's fully kind of sprite based, and it's just and the music. Some of the best music you've ever heard in a game. It's so good, like orchestral music. I can hear it in my head now. It's brilliant.
I need to play it. It's when I ever look at it, it feels like the Galaxy Force port that we never got at the time.
It's well worth seeking out. And I don't think, I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think it's that expensive or rare for the Mega CD. So if you can see it cheap or reasonable price, definitely get it, because it's well worth a pick up.
Yeah, I think that one and Battle Core go for around the same price.
Battle Core, again, another core design game,
I
believe. Another sort of 3D roaming kind of, but almost like in a Doom mold where you were in this like mech thing. And I never actually played the full game of that. I only played the demo that came on a demo disc with the Multi-Mega. So yeah, that's another sort of showcase for what the system can do. So those are really the games that mean a lot to me, that I've played personally and have a connection to. But there are a couple of others that I thought was worth mentioning that are like really well known Mega CD kind of exclusives, or people associate them with that system. You've got things like Snatcher, which is a game again that goes through the roof with prices nowadays. You've got things like KO Flying Squadron, which we mentioned earlier, and then Road Rash. Mega CD. The Mega CD version is quite sought after. Only released in the US, I believe, for the Mega CD.
Quite possibly. I've never played the Mega CD version, but Sega Lord X talks a lot about it because that one has not only is it kind of like a pseudo. It kind of aims to do what the 3DO version did. It's like halfway house between that and Mega Drive, but the soundtrack is absolutely astounding as well.
Yep, you're 100% right there, Dan. It's a bit of a mashup between the sort of the 32-bit and the 16-bit versions.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the highlights for me. People tell you, "Oh, there's no good games on the Mega CD." I beg your pardon. Yes, there are.
There's absolutely
more
loads
that we've not mentioned. I don't know about yourselves. Are there any that I've missed that you think are worth mentioning?
Not to be honest, you mentioned most of the ones that I've played or own. Snatcher is probably my game of the Mega CD. I only got a reproduction copy. Absolutely no way can I afford the £400, £500, £600 that it goes for now. So I got a decent repro copy for like 15 quid or something. It looks the part, and it plays. It plays flawlessly, and that game is just absolutely sensational. It's like peak Hideo Kojima for me, like up there with Metal Gear Solid. It's absolutely astounding. You played through it, have you?
I haven't played through it. I've played a portion of it on an emulator because I was aware of the mystique and the legend of this game, and I thought I have to play this thing to get an idea of what it's about. And it's a kind of like a cyberpunk sort of detective story, isn't it? And I love the art style and the gameplay. And I've got to be honest with you, I've only played about maybe 2.5 hours of it on an emulator.
Yeah.
But I get why people like it just from that little piece I played of it. So
it's astounding. I can't recommend that game enough. It's definitely my favorite game on the system. But ones that we haven't mentioned, like stuff like the Luna titles.
Of course,
I've never got a chance to play them. I don't know if they actually got a release over here. I think the first one may have done. I'm not sure if the second one did. Obviously, they got enhanced remakes for the Saturn and PlayStation, but they're by all accounts classic games as well. And they're apparently, I think they stand alone. I think the remakes are slightly different, so they're almost like their own games. And it's like they're exclusive to the Mega CD, almost like Snatcher is the only English version of that game we've got is on the Mega CD. And like you say, all those core design games are all Mega CD only, and there's so much on there. There really is. I think the library is like 300 games or something, maybe even more, and a lot of them are decent.
There's probably people listening to this or watching this who are like, hardcore Mega CD fans, and massive respect to you if you are. But this, I'm really, you can kind of guess from the games I've chosen, like my kind of the games I like. So I'm not a big RPG fan.
Yeah.
And of course, as well, we have to take into consideration that the library that was released in the UK was quite limited compared to what you would have got in Japan. So there's other games, there's things like Pop Full Mail. That I've heard of and are like, considered to be these great games, but I've never experienced them because they weren't released here. And if you want to get them now, they're really expensive and there's all the rest of it. So I mean, I could emulate it, but it's one of them.
Yeah. Also Batman Returns as well.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Forget that.
Which again, when I was looking at videos of that running, like the Batmobile levels were eerily similar to the Batman 89 Amiga Batmobile levels. Obviously, the animation and the details a lot more on the Mega CD, but that kind of behind the car, kind of third person sort of view using the kind of the rope to get around corners and stuff, very similar to what the Amiga Batmobile levels were. But that was another one. If I remember, who else was it? Someone was talking about Batman Returns last year. It might have been Carl Lavery, possibly, on Twitter was talking about Batman Returns for the Mega CD. Someone was That's why it kind of came to mind there. But as I say, looking at kind of like videos and screenshots, the actual vehicle levels look really similar to the Amiga Batman 89 ones.
And they weren't developed by the same team, were they? Or is there any connection, or is it just an inspiration, do you think?
Oh no, possibly maybe the inspiration for it.
That's interesting. I love little tidbits like that I was previously unaware of. It's really interesting to see the
Yeah,
connection between certain games, especially ones that are not really at the forefront of people's minds,
yeah.
like
I mean,
Batman Returns on a Mega CD.
I mean, it's definitely more detailed if it'll actually show up there. But I mean, there's the
Yeah. Is that
very
the Amiga version? Is it?
that's a Mega CD one,
Okay.
and then if we go to Batman Amiga, this is just absolute madness doing this. But hold on a minute.
Talk amongst yourselves.
What we have to do is blow this up when we.
Aye. So there's the Amiga one.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see a resemblance. Totally, yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry, we'll cut away for this and we'll show it on the screen. So that's fine.
With the magic of editing.
Yeah. It reminds me, Terminator's another one that goes for a lot of money that's meant to be really good, but I never played that. I don't know if you did, Tom.
Yeah, Terminator. Yeah, was it T2 the arcade game?
It was. I think it was called The Terminator, so it's the original.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else then, so possibly not. But yeah, I mean, there's so many games we couldn't possibly mention them all on this chat, but there's so many great games on the Mega CD. Yeah, I think it's an overlooked system, unfortunately. But yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, as we mentioned earlier, because it's getting so expensive now, I suppose your only option really is to kind of emulate if you want to play these games. And luckily, you've got things like what's it called, the EverDrive? Doesn't that?
That was the point I was going to make. Is you can. There's no like OED, ODE rather, for the Mega CD, because obviously for the Saturn you've got Fenrir, you've got Mode, you've got Satiator. And then for the Dreamcast, you've got GDEMU and you've got the clones, which can be quite affordable. In fact, you can probably, on the Mega Drive, on the Saturn and the Dreamcast, you can get a ODE for less than 100 quid. But for the Mega CD, your only option really is to get either the Mega EverDrive Pro or the Mega SD, and I think they're both around £300. So I mean, the funny thing about them is you don't actually even need a Mega CD, because I think they've got FPGA chips in them. So you can just have a standalone Mega Drive, plop that card in the top, and you could basically just load your entire Mega CD library in there, which is really cool. And people have been doing obviously the homebrew community have been doing some amazing things with it, because they kind of like mod games so that you can get CD quality audio playing on Mega Drive games that weren't designed to have it. But yeah, I think that's probably, it's a barrier to entry. If you're someone, and I think between us, we all like playing on real hardware, and I'm sure a lot of people that are viewing and listening do. Unfortunately, there's a bit of however way you try and approach to make a CD, whether it's the hardware itself, which can be extremely expensive, or the games, which can be really expensive, or even trying to go down the ODE route, which is get one of these Mega EverDrive Pros or these Mega SDs. They're £300 roundabout as well. So it's unfortunate that in terms of penetration, there's quite a high bar of entry, which is a shame, really.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear from somebody who is like really into like the Mega Drive, who's got maybe one of these FPGA consoles along with a multi-cart, adapter, and just know how it works. And if it does, you've got these systems, that have native HDMI connections to modern TVs, and you can play multi-carts in them. How does the Mega CD emulation work there? Does it look great? What does the video quality look like? I'm just really curious to see. I'm sure people watching this, there's somebody out there who's probably doing what I'm describing. So if you are, then please, leave a. I'm sorry, I'm talking for you, and you're drop a comment. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us a shout if that is one of you listening or watching right now. But I think to close this off, I think the point that I had is, what is the Mega CD's legacy? I remember personally, being extremely hyped for it. I had loads of Sega magazines, and I was just like, for me, it was kind of this forbidden fruit, this exotic thing I could never have. Um, and even now, it feels kind of like that for me. Obviously, when you got yours, Tom, it was mind blowing that the things that it was doing. And I think it is looked on unkindly today, which is pretty unfair, really. But I think it still has a legacy of sorts because even though it was kind of an intermediate console, it still served to get us to effectively where we are today.
I 100% agree. And, it sits in that weird period where Sega was trying to force more out of the 16-bit system that they
Yeah,
had at their disposal. They, put a CD drive on it, put a 32X on it. You can still play these games. You can still keep up with the other things. But for me, personally, I think it opened the door almost. It warmed me up to the Saturn. It was the natural progression from going from a cartridge-based, Mega Drive to a CD-based Mega Drive to a Saturn. So that's what it did for me. And yeah, I've still got very fond memories of it. Some of the best gaming times of my life, really, in that period. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think if you look back and the focus on FMV and more story-driven content kind of translates to where we are today. And if you think about it, there's probably a dotted line that you can trace. I do look at it and sometimes think of there is a bit of missed opportunity there. You've mentioned stuff like Thunderhawk and Battlecore, where you've got all this sprite scaling and all these rotating maps and all this, and that was hardware, and that was part of the reason which drove the cost of the unit up so much. But it seems like it wasn't fully realized, and it does feel like there's a little bit of a missed opportunity there, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And again, just going right back to the beginning of the chat where I mentioned Supreme Warrior, there were those few games which were CD32X games.
Yeah.
If they'd maybe harnessed the power of the two of them combined, who knows what we could have seen? Like, games that actually use the 3D capabilities of 32X, but also had the CD the CD streaming and storage in there as well. Not just FMV games or games that had FMV, which had a slightly boosted video quality because it had a 32X in, which I believe is what the point of some of those games was. So yeah, who knows what could have been if it hadn't been such a short-lived period. But
yeah, it's crazy when you think about the fact that the 32X had two SH2s. The Mega CD had dedicated graphical chipsets, which were on scaling and rotating backgrounds, which sounds familiar. And then you had the graphics processor in the 32X, which did your normal 3D geometry and everything, which you put all that together and you sort of have a Saturn, albeit one albeit one that's nowhere near not nowhere as near as powerful, but you just
I always think about I always kind of like fantasize. This is going to sound so weird, but like about games that never were. Can you imagine if like they'd got like a Mega CD version of Doom or a 32X CD version of Doom, which had all the levels, had the full soundtrack, and you can only play it if you had a Sega 32X, Tower of Power. You had all them plugs hanging out the back. You got full, 30 frames a second or 24 frames a second or whatever they were boasting about at the time.
This is one of these projects, these homebrew projects. There's the Doom mod for the 32X, which restores all the content and makes it full screen. And that's one of the games where they've actually put the CD audio in if you're playing it through one of these carts, which is that's your dream come true there, mate.
Oh, that's what I'm going to be doing after this. Then, I'll be
there. He's away.
Excuse me. I'm back in a sec.
I mean, between that, it's just very quickly go back to the kind of the Snatcher chat. I noticed that Derek Pascarella had done an English mod for Rabbit, a 2D beat 'em up on the Saturn, and he said that he wants to dabble in doing some more Saturn stuff. So I know the Saturn version of Snatcher is viewed as inferior to the Mega CD one, but given that barrier of entry, obviously if you want to play on actual hardware for Snatcher, can someone just please take the Mega CD English and put it onto the Japanese Saturn version so we can play it?
And while they're at it, can you just do Sega Gaga as well? Just do it. Do it all.
Oh, that's the dream, that one. And I think we all want to play that. Like Derek keeps teasing that it's coming. Like it's been worked on. It'll be ready when it's ready. There's people working on it. I'm like, please don't have me sitting there when I'm like 80, like checking like X rattling like it's finally out.
Still playing, waiting for Rise of the Robots to load on your Amiga, like putting the next disc in.
Oh, brilliant. Tom, thanks so much for coming on again, mate. It's been an absolute blast. This is your chance, mate. Plug away whatever you're working on these days. Where can our viewers and listeners find you and your work?
Well, first of all, just let me say thank you for having me. It's been great to go down memory lane, and I do, genuinely watch your videos when they come out. So, and amazing job that you do on the channel. So, thank you really for what you do.
Mate.
Where can you find me? Well, I'm on YouTube. You can just find me under my name, which is Thomas Charnock. But you probably don't want to watch my videos because they're mainly just about motorbikes and me tinkering around motorbike engines, and then moaning at James on WhatsApp about things that I've done wrong.
Leaving tissue paper inside valves and engines.
Well, we don't talk about that. I didn't tell anyone about that yet.
We'll edit that
out. Yeah, I mean, you might know me from the Dreamcast Junkyard, so feel free to go and have a look at the Junkyard blog.
You was on a podcast recently, wasn't you?
I was, yeah.
I know you've stepped away a little bit, but you were back on there recently, which is good, so anyone can still find you on there.
Yeah, they did a 25, what was it, the best indie games on the Dreamcast podcast recently. So I guested on that. It feels weird saying I guested on a podcast that I started, but yeah, so I did that. But yeah, no, it's just a pleasure to be here. I'm around, you can find me if you need me, just put your lips together and blow, I suppose, and I'll appear. Yeah.
Oh, you'll definitely be back again. But no, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you, viewers and listeners, for sticking with us. Love to hear your thoughts on the Mega CD. Get in touch via the comments below, or via the Radio Sega Discord if you're listening live there, or via the Sega Guys Discord. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this, if you're on YouTube, drop a like or a subscribe. And why not think about becoming a member, which you can do from as little as 99p. And you can join our infamous list of contributors. James, if you'd like to list out our supporters for this show.
Certainly, the premium members this week, we have Andy Mackey, we have Sega Saturn Lad, we have G-Man, we have Stiff Peaks, we have I Am Mikowski, Craig Williamson, and of course our good friends at Sega Saturn Shiro. And thank you to all our members of all tiers and subscribers for your support. As Dan said, membership start at 99 pence, but if a monthly membership's not your thing, no problem at all. We appreciate your support and liking, sharing, and subscribing. So thank you very much, everybody.
Yep, thank you so much. Even if it's just coming here, watching, hanging out, and making it to the end. Thank you so much. Until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.
Sega.